David swore Jared was my soulmate. My sweet, well-meaning, oblivious cousin, David. He's charming, Mel, he'd said, that dimpled grin plastered on his face. You two are perfect together, and maybe, for a while, I believed him. Jared was charming. He knew how to look at me, how to make me laugh, how to make me feel like I was the most important woman in the world. Our wedding was something out of a magazine, white dress, overflowing flowers, all my friends and family smiling. I remember feeling a dizzying sense of hope. This was it. This was the beginning of my life. David, beaming, squeezed my arm. See? Told ya. The first red flag wasn't even a flag, just a faint tremor. Jared suggested we move in with his mother, Evelyn. It'll save us money, Mel, and Mom needs the company since Dad died. It's just the right thing to do, I hesitated. I wanted our own space, a place that was ours. But Jared's logic was hard to argue with, and Evelyn seemed nice enough. Reserved, maybe, but nice. I wanted to be a good wife, so I agreed. Living with Evelyn wasn't a nightmare at first. It was just awkward. She was quiet, always watching me, and her house felt like a museum. I tried to help out, cook, clean, but nothing I did seemed to please her. She'd offer these subtle criticisms, little digs that chipped away at my confidence. 6 months in, Jared dropped the bomb. Mel, I've been thinking, maybe you should quit your job. My heart slammed against my ribs. Quit? But I like my job, Jared. I was an architectural designer and I loved my job. It would be better for everyone, he said, his voice reasonable, infuriatingly calm. Mom could use the help, and you'd have more time to take care of the house. It would be a huge weight off my shoulders. He laid it on thick, talking about family, about sacrifice, about how much easier it would make his life. I caved. I quit my job, telling myself it was for the best. For us. The first few weeks were manageable. I cleaned, I cooked, I tried to bond with Evelyn. I missed the creative outlet of my work, the feeling of accomplishment, but I forced myself to focus on being a good wife. Jared was all smiles. See? This is working out great. Everyone's so much happier. I plastered on a smile, pushing down the creeping unease. Yeah, I lied. It's not so bad. But it was bad. It got worse, slowly, insidiously. Evelyn started treating me like hired help. Jared started siding with her, always. I wasn't a wife anymore. I was a maid. The mornings became a gauntlet of Evelyn's demands. Melody, did you forget to dust the china cabinet? It's filthy. Her voice was always sharp, laced with disapproval. I dusted it yesterday, Evelyn, I'd reply, trying to keep the frustration from my voice. Well, it doesn't look like it. You need to be more thorough. Jared would come home and Evelyn would pounce, complaining about me like I was a disobedient dog. Jared, you need to talk to Melody. She's not keeping the house clean enough. And Jared, my Jared, would frown at me. Melody, what's going on? Why isn't the house clean? I'd try to explain, to defend myself, but he wouldn't listen. Just do a better job. We can't have Mom upset. I felt like I was suffocating, trapped in a world where I could never measure up. The lunch incident was the turning point. Evelyn decided to have her bridge club over. She gave me a few hours' notice. I scrambled, trying to prepare something decent. I was a terrible cook, but I tried. Melody, I need you to serve lunch. Make sure everything is perfect. Her friends arrived, all of them perfectly coiffed and dripping with expensive jewelry. I served the lukewarm quiche and wilted salad, my hands shaking. I could feel their eyes on me, judging me. Is this your daughter-in-law, Evelyn? She seems a bit flustered. Evelyn smiled, a cruel, thin smile. Yes, she's still learning how to manage everything. I wanted to crawl under the floorboards. After they left, Evelyn cornered Jared. Melody was so slow and disorganized. Her cooking wasn't even that good. Jared exploded. Melody, what the hell happened? Mom said you messed up lunch. I did my best, Jared, I said, my voice trembling. I was just trying to keep up. Well, it wasn't good enough. You need to step it up. I felt like a failure. Worthless. The criticisms became relentless. The shouting matches more frequent. I started dreading waking up each morning, terrified of what new torment awaited me. I missed my job, my friends, my life. I wanted to run, to escape, but I felt trapped, like a bird in a gilded cage. One weekend, I tried to take a break, just an hour to read a book, to breathe. Evelyn found me in the living room, book in hand. Melody, what are you doing? There's laundry that needs to be done. I just wanted a little break, Evelyn, I said, trying to keep my voice even. No breaks until all the work is done. Get to it. Jared came home, and Evelyn, of course, told him about my laziness. He stormed in, his face thunderous. Melody, what the hell? You can't just sit around when there's work to do. I wasn't sitting around all day, Jared. I just took a short break. No more breaks. Just do your damn job. I felt like I was shrinking, disappearing. I was a prisoner in my own home. 2 years into this hell, a flicker of light appeared. I found out I was pregnant. When our daughter Chloe was born, my entire world shifted. She was beautiful, perfect. I loved her with a ferocity I never knew I possessed. She became my reason for getting up in the morning, for enduring the endless torment. I spent all my time caring for her, trying to shield her from the ugliness that surrounded us. But it was impossible. Jared's temper was getting worse, his anger more unpredictable. I couldn't protect her completely. One evening when Chloe was 5, everything shattered. Jared came home, drunk and enraged. I don't even remember what he was angry about. It never mattered. Melody! Why the hell is this house such a mess? He roared, slamming the door. I cleaned it, Jared. I've been taking care of Chloe all day, too. I felt the familiar knot of fear tightening in my stomach. Your cleaning isn't good enough. You're useless. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my flesh, and shoved me hard. I lost my balance, slamming against the corner of the kitchen counter. A sharp, blinding pain shot through my side. I screamed, "Mommy!" Chloe cried, running towards me. Jared turned on her, his face twisted with rage. Go to your room, Chloe. Chloe froze, her eyes wide with terror. Mommy, are you okay? I looked at her, my heart breaking. It's okay, baby. Mommy's okay. But I could see the fear etched on her face. After that night, Chloe started stuttering. It was barely noticeable at first, a slight hesitation in her speech. But it got worse. We went to doctors, therapists, but nothing seemed to help. It killed me to see her like that, knowing it was because of what she had witnessed, because of what he had done. I knew Chloe was watching, absorbing everything. She was learning from the way Jared treated me. I was terrified she'd think this was normal, that this was how families were supposed to be. But I felt powerless. Jared had made it clear countless times that everything, the house, the money, was his. He'd said he knew people and could make my life hell if I ever tried to leave. He told me more than once that if I tried to leave or filed for divorce, he'd take Chloe away from me. I couldn't risk losing her. She was my everything, so I stayed. I endured the shouting, the pushing, the constant fear. I kept quiet, thinking it was the only way to keep Chloe safe. Then, my mother died. I hadn't spoken to her in years. Jared forbade it. He always had some excuse, some reason why I couldn't call or visit. He wanted me isolated, completely dependent on him. David called me. His voice was soft, filled with grief. Melody, I'm so sorry. Mom. She passed away. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me, crushing me. I hadn't been there for her. I'd let Jared keep me away. I needed to go to her funeral. I needed to say goodbye. I approached Jared, my voice trembling. Jared, my mom, she died. I need to go to the funeral. He didn't even look up from his newspaper. No, you're not going anywhere. We don't have the money for that. Tears streamed down my face. Please, Jared. She was my mother. I have to go. No. And that's final. You stay here and take care of the house and Chloe. He turned back to his paper, dismissing me. A surge of anger, unlike anything I'd ever felt, coursed through me. He was so cruel, so heartless. I knew I had to go, no matter what he said. I crept into Chloe's room and gently woke her. Sweetie, we're going on a little trip. Be very quiet, okay? Okay, Mommy, she whispered, her voice sleepy and confused. That night, after everyone was asleep, I packed a small bag for Chloe and me. I took what little savings I had hidden away, a pathetic sum, but it was something. Then, quietly, I slipped out of the house with Chloe. We got in the car, and I started driving towards my hometown. My heart was pounding, but I knew I had to do this. We arrived early the next morning, exhausted but relieved to be away from Jared, even if only for a few hours. I checked into a cheap motel, a dingy room with stained carpets, but it felt like paradise. The family service was brutal. I hadn't seen my family in years, and the grief, the anger, the unspoken accusations, it was overwhelming. I felt like I was suffocating. During the service, my phone rang. Jared, of course. I fumbled with it, accidentally hitting the speaker button. His voice, loud and distorted, echoed through the room. Melody, get your ass back home right now, or I swear to God, I'll file for divorce and take Chloe away from you. Every head in the room turned towards me. My family stared, their faces a mixture of shock and pity. I felt my face burning with shame. I quickly turned off the speaker and mumbled, I'm at my mom's funeral, Jared. We'll talk later. I hung up, my hands shaking. For the rest of the service, I felt a knot of shame and rage twisting in my stomach. He'd humiliated me in front of everyone. But I also felt something else, a strange sense of clarity. I knew, with absolute certainty, that I couldn't keep living like this. After the service, David approached me. His eyes were filled with concern. Melody, you can't go back to that. You deserve better. He pressed a piece of paper into my hand. Call this lawyer. He can help you. I looked at the paper, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within me. Maybe this was my chance. Thank you, David, I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. We spent the night at the motel. I didn't sleep, but for the first time in years, I felt a spark of hope. I was terrified, but I knew I had to take this chance, for Chloe and for myself. That morning, I woke up with a new resolve. My mom had left me a small inheritance, a sum of money I didn't know existed. It was a lifeline, a chance to start over. I looked at the phone number David gave me, the lawyer who could help me get out of this hell. I took a deep breath and dialed. Hello, Mr. Thompson. This is Melody. I'd like to schedule a consultation. His voice was calm, professional. Of course, Miss S. Melody. Can you come in this afternoon? Yes, I'll be there. I hung up, feeling a mix of fear and determination churning inside me. After dropping Chloe off at David's house, I drove to Mr. Thompson's office. It was a sterile, impersonal space, but Mr. Thompson himself was warm and reassuring. Miss S. Melody, tell me everything. I poured out my story, the years of control, the threats, the violence. I told him about Chloe, about my fear for her. He listened patiently, taking notes. We need solid evidence of the abuse, both physical and emotional, he said. Record everything. Keep a detailed journal. I nodded, a plan forming in my mind. I'll do that. I'll record every incident. Write down everything. After the meeting, I went straight to an electronics store and bought a new smartphone. It felt like a small act of rebellion, a step towards taking back control. I set it up with a secure passcode and tested the recording function. I wanted to be ready. Feeling slightly more prepared, I returned to David's house to pick up Chloe. She looked happier, more relaxed than I'd seen her in a long time. Ready to go home, sweetie? I asked, giving her a hug. Yes, Mommy, she replied, smiling. We drove back to Jared and Evelyn's house. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, but I forced myself to stay calm. This time, I was going back with a plan. As soon as I walked in, Evelyn was there, glaring at me. Where the hell have you been, Melody? Do you think you can just waltz in and out as you please? I was at my mother's funeral, Evelyn, I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. Well, you're back now. Get to work. This house won't clean itself. She turned away with a huff. I took a deep breath, turned on my new phone, and slipped it into my pocket. I started cleaning, methodically, documenting every harsh word, every snide comment. Jared came home, predictably furious. Melody, what the hell were you thinking? Leaving like that without my permission, he roared. I went to my mom's funeral, Jared. I had to go, I replied, my heart pounding. You don't do anything without my say-so. Do you hear me? He grabbed my arm, his fingers bruising my skin. Give me your phone? I handed him my old phone, a cheap burner I'd bought just for this purpose. Here, I said, meeting his gaze. Is that what you want? He snatched it from me, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. But he couldn't see the real weapon I was carrying. That night, after everyone was asleep, I sat down with my journal. I wrote down everything that had happened since I got back, every insult, every threat. I felt a sense of purpose, a determination to see this through. The days that followed were hell. Jared and Evelyn were more hostile than ever, but I kept recording, documenting everything. I was building my case, piece by piece, readying myself for the fight ahead. At dinner one night, Evelyn launched into one of her tirades. You're nothing but a worthless girl, Melody. Leaving the house without Jared's permission is disgraceful. Evelyn, don't insult me in front of my daughter, I said, trying to keep my voice calm but firm. Jared's face turned red with anger. How dare you raise your voice at my mother? He slammed his fist on the table, rattling the dishes. You live here because we take you in. Don't forget that. I took a deep breath, feeling a strange calm wash over me. I want a divorce, Jared. His face contorted with rage. You belong to me. You'll be my property until you die. I wasn't scared this time. I had my phone in my pocket, recording everything. I knew I had proof. Over the next week, I continued to record every insult, every threat. Each time they belittled me, I quietly turned on my phone. Evelyn didn't hold back. You're worthless, Melody. Can't even keep a house clean. Jared was even worse. You think you're tough now? You'll never leave me. You're nothing without me. I stayed calm, recording his every word, adding them to my growing list of evidence. It was exhausting, but I knew it was necessary. One day I caught Evelyn ranting at me in the kitchen. You're a disgrace to this family, Melody. Leaving the house like a slut. I recorded her words, feeling more determined than ever. I knew I was building a strong case, one that would protect Chloe and me. This week was tough, but I felt a new sense of purpose. I was gathering the evidence I needed to break free. For Chloe's sake, and for mine. I was determined to see this through. A week after returning from my mom's funeral, I couldn't take the tension at home anymore. I called Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, it's Melody. I've collected all the evidence. It's getting unbearable here. Melody, I have an update. Your cousin, David, hired a private investigator. The investigator has uncovered some important findings. Can you meet him today? My heart leaped. Of course! I'll go right away. I drove to meet the private investigator, feeling nervous but also filled with a desperate hope. He was waiting for me, his face grave. Melody, I've been looking into your husband's activities. He's involved in some fraudulent schemes, shady business dealings, and has ties to criminal activities. The police have been watching him, but they didn't have enough evidence. Until now. He handed me a thick folder. This folder has everything. It's your freedom, Melody. I took the folder, my hands trembling. Thank you, I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. This means everything to me. I got back in my car and drove home, my mind racing. What did this mean for Chloe? What did this mean for us? As I pulled into the driveway, Jared was there, waiting for me. His face was twisted with anger. Where the hell have you been, Melody? Get in the house. Now. A surge of fear washed over me, but I forced myself to stay calm. I didn't get out of the car. Instead, I pulled out my phone and called David. David, I'm home, and Jared is furious. I have the evidence. Can you call the police? My voice was shaking. Stay in the car, Melody. I'll call them right now. Seeing that I wasn't moving, Jared yanked the car door open and dragged me out. You don't listen. You think you can defy me? He screamed, pulling me towards the house. Just then, the police sirens wailed in the distance. Lights flashed, illuminating the scene. I collapsed onto the asphalt, overwhelmed by the tension. The officers rushed over, separating Jared from me. They arrested him and seized the folder containing the evidence. I sat there, watching as they led him away, feeling a mix of relief and disbelief. Was it really over? After the police took Jared away, Evelyn went ballistic. She stormed out of the house, her face contorted with rage. You ungrateful bitch. We took you in, and this is how you repay us? I didn't respond. What was the point? I went inside and started packing. I gathered what little I had, shoving clothes into a suitcase. Chloe clung to my side, sensing the tension. She didn't say a word. With our bags packed, I took Chloe's hand and walked out of that house. As soon as we were down the path and out on the street, I felt like the weight of the world had been lifted. I rented a small apartment nearby, a one-bedroom place with peeling paint and a leaky faucet. But it was ours. It was safe. It felt like a palace compared to the nightmare we'd left behind. I focused on preparing for the trial. Mr. Thompson was an invaluable source of support, guiding me through the legal process. He assured me that we had a strong case, thanks to all the evidence we had gathered. The day of the trial arrived, and I was a mess of nerves. Fear warred with hope. I walked into the courtroom, holding my head high. I had to be strong. I had to fight for my future, for Chloe's future. Mr. Thompson presented all the evidence, the recordings, the journal entries, the documents from the private investigator. It was gut-wrenching to relive it all, to have every painful detail laid bare. Finally, the judge spoke. I held my breath. Based on the evidence presented, I grant the divorce and full custody of the child to Miss S. Melody. The defendant is also ordered to provide financial compensation for moral and physical damages. The judge made Alex pay alimony for life, since Alex and Ellen didn't have the money to pay the compensation. Alex was also sentenced to 5 years in prison for his business crimes. I went home and told Chloe the news, carefully, using words she could understand. Are we safe now, Mommy? She asked, her eyes wide with hope. Yes, Chloe. We're safe, and we're free to live our lives the way we want. I hugged her tight, tears of joy streaming down my face. After the trial, I moved back to my hometown. My mom's house was still there, waiting for me. It felt like coming home after a long, dark journey. The house was filled with memories, both happy and sad, but it also held a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. David helped me find a job at a local women's shelter. I worked as a counselor, helping other women escape abusive relationships. It was rewarding, using my experiences to make a difference in the lives of others. Chloe blossomed. Without Jared and Evelyn's toxic presence, her stuttering gradually disappeared. She became a confident, happy child. 5 years later, my life was unrecognizable. Chloe was thriving, I had a fulfilling job, and I had built a supportive community around me. The scars of the past were still there, but they were fading, replaced by a sense of strength and resilience. One afternoon, my phone rang. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Melody? It's Jared. I want to see my daughter. His voice was harsh, demanding. A surge of anger coursed through me. No, Jared. You lost that right. Don't bother us again. I hung up, my hand shaking. I looked out the window, watching Chloe playing happily in the yard. I felt a fierce protectiveness rise within me. We had come so far, and I would do anything to safeguard our new life. Raising Chloe, I focused on teaching her to be strong and independent. I wanted her to know her worth, to never let anyone control or belittle her. I wanted her to grow up knowing that she was loved, that she was safe, and that she could overcome anything. Later that evening, after Chloe was asleep, I sat at my desk, the soft glow of the lamp illuminating the worn wooden surface. I pulled out a piece of paper and began to write. It was a letter I knew I would never send, but I needed to say the words, to exorcise the last remnants of the past. Jared, it's been years. Years since I last saw you, since I last felt the fear that used to consume me. I imagine you're different now, maybe even remorseful. But I don't care. I don't want to know. You took so much from me, Jared. My job, my confidence, my sense of self. You tried to break me, to turn me into nothing. But you failed! You didn't break me. For a long time, I thought you had. I thought I was worthless, that I deserved the way you treated me. Evelyn, too. I wanted to run away, to start over again so many times, but I was so scared that you were going to find us. You stole years from me, ones that I'll never get back. I know this sounds cruel, but when I lost my mom, I lost any sense of what family was supposed to look like. But Chloe gave me the strength to fight. She gave me a reason to live, a reason to escape, and now she is thriving. She is growing into a strong, confident young woman. She knows she is loved. She is everything you tried to take from her. She no longer stutters and gets to play on the soccer team. She is also a brilliant artist. You will never be a part of her life. You forfeited that right the day you raised your hand to me, the day you terrorized her with your rage. You thought you could control me, that you could keep me trapped forever. But you were wrong. I am free. I am building a life for myself and for my daughter. A life filled with love, laughter, and hope. A life where we are safe. A life where we are happy. Don't ever contact us again. Leave us alone. Let us live in peace. Melody, I finished the letter, tears blurring the ink. I folded it carefully and tucked it away in a drawer, among other forgotten memories. It was done. I had said what I needed to say. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and let it go. A few weeks later, David came to visit. He'd been a constant source of support throughout the years. A true friend. "How are you doing, Mel?" he asked, his voice filled with genuine concern. "I'm good, David," I replied, smiling. "Really good. Chloe's doing great. I love my job and I'm happy." Finally, David smiled back, his dimples deepening. "I'm glad to hear it. You deserve it." He paused, then said, "You know, I always felt terrible about introducing you to Jared. I really thought he was a good guy." "It's okay, David," I said, waving my hand dismissively. "You couldn't have known. It wasn't your fault." "Still," he said, "I'm just glad you got out, and that you're okay." We talked for a while longer, catching up on old times. As he was leaving, he hesitated at the door. "There's something else I wanted to tell you," he said. I've met someone," my heart leaped. "Really? That's wonderful, David. Tell me everything." He blushed, a rare sight on his usually jovial face. "Her name is Sarah. She's amazing. Kind, funny, smart. I think she might be the one. I'm so happy for you, David," I said, giving him a hug. "You deserve to find happiness, too." As he walked away, I felt a surge of gratitude for him. He'd been my rock, my lifeline, and now he was finding his own happiness. I closed the door and leaned against it, taking a deep breath. Life was good. A few months later, I was at a charity event, working as a volunteer. I was setting up tables when I bumped into someone, sending a stack of napkins flying. "Oh, I'm so sorry," I said, flustered. A man knelt down to help me pick them up. "No worries. he said, smiling. It happens. As we gathered the napkins, our eyes met. He had kind eyes, a warm smile, and a genuine aura about him. I'm Mark, he said, extending his hand. Melody, I replied, shaking his hand. We spent the rest of the evening talking. He was a doctor, working at a local clinic. He was compassionate, intelligent, and had a wonderful sense of humor. Over the next few weeks, we started spending more time together. We went to the movies, out to dinner, for walks in the park. I found myself laughing more than I had in years. Mark was different from Jared. He didn't try to control me, to tell me what to do. He listened to me, respected my opinions, and made me feel valued. One evening, as we were sitting on my porch, watching the sunset, Mark took my hand. Melody, he said, his voice soft. I've really enjoyed getting to know you. You're an amazing woman. I blushed, feeling a warmth spread through me. Thank you, Mark. I've enjoyed getting to know you, too. He paused, then said, I know you've been through a lot, and I understand if you're not ready for anything serious. I looked at him, my heart filled with a mix of hope and trepidation. I'm scared, Mark, I said, my voice barely a whisper. He squeezed my hand gently. I know, but I promise I'll never hurt you. I'll always be there for you, if you'll let me. Tears welled up in my eyes. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that I wanted to take a chance. I wanted to open my heart again. I'll let you, I whispered. He smiled, leaned in, and kissed me. It was a gentle kiss, a tender kiss, a kiss that promised hope. Years passed. Mark and I got married. It was a small, intimate ceremony, surrounded by our closest friends and family. Chloe was my maid of honor, radiant in a simple blue dress. Mark became a wonderful stepfather to Chloe. He loved her as if she were his own, supporting her dreams and encouraging her to be her best self. Together, we built a life filled with love, laughter, and stability. I never forgot the pain of the past, but I refused to let it define me. I had learned to be strong, to be independent, to stand up for myself and for those I loved. One evening, as I was tucking Chloe into bed, she looked at me and said, Mom, I'm so glad you left Jared. My heart ached with a mix of sadness and pride. Me too, sweetie, I said, kissing her forehead. Me too. As I walked out of her room, I paused, looking back at her sleeping peacefully. She was my everything, my reason for living. And thanks to her, I had found the strength to break free and create a better life for both of us. I walked into the living room where Mark was waiting for me. I sat beside him on the couch, leaned my head on his shoulder, and closed my eyes. I was safe. I was loved. I was free. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And it was beautiful. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. The story ends with a sense of hopeful resolution, emphasizing the protagonist's strength, resilience, and the bright future she has created for herself and her daughter, with the love and support of genuine connections.